以3秒3普陀谢。南无萨南多苏伽多耶阿那诃利3秒3普陀谢。南无萨南多苏伽多耶阿那诃利3秒3普陀谢。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。诸佛菩萨、诸护上人、各位法师、各位善知识，阿弥陀佛。今天我们来继续一起研究八识规矩颂。
All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were master and instructs all the disciples. Today we shall continue to investigate these verses, delineating the inconsistency.
我们还在前5，我们还在前5式的范围里面。
So we are still discussing the scope of these 5 consciousness.
为什么从那边出来？那个什么
奇怪，我是我 lock out 这。
你是
Testing 1 2 3 Testing 1 2 3。那这样pass。
对啊，太大声了。是我的 speaker 吗？我今天是用 iPad。
是 iPad
是啊。不是啊，我想说今天用 iPad 试试看。
反正我用 iPad， 所以这个 app 跟我们一起
是吗？不知道啊。
Testing 1 2 3 Testing 1 2 3 Testing 1 2 3 Testing 1 2 3 Testing 1 2 3。
因为连接到那个 projector 的那个音响，关掉。
Testing 1 2 3。
OK 了哈，我觉得好像 OK 了。OK， 好。那我今天呢收到了一封信，写给我，他问昨天的问题。那他的意思就是说，因为我们昨天不是讲说，如果我们八识里面没有那个种子，你是看不到的，你是看不到这个东西，这个东西在里面你也是看不到。那他的问题是说，比方说我的前面有个苹果，那如果我从以前从来没看过苹果，它有一个苹果在我面前，我会不知道它是什么东西，在我的第八识里面，但是我还是可以看到那个东西在那里，只是不晓得它叫做什么。那说，非从以这个理由来讲呢，我们眼是还是可以看到东西在我面前，只是我们只是不知道它是什么，所以结论是我们眼是应该不需要九元，因为我们昨天讲9元生嘛，也是9元生，包括种子嘛。他说我们还是可以看得到，不需要种子也可以看得到这个东西。为什么我们需要9元生呢？这是他的问题。你知道他的问题是什么吗？知不知道他的问题是什么 ？OK， 那你们说呢？
是那个9 condition 是什么东西？不清楚吧？
什么是 nine
这
condition？
么写的吗？几送？
啊，对呀、可是他以他的 concept 来讲，他说，按理说，如果比较前面这些花，如果我以前没看过，我不知道这是花，但是我还是看到这个东西啊。为什么说我的眼是需要种子才显现出来，才能看到？你们觉得呢？听起来很有道理啊。啊，你说，拿个麦给他。
陆律师，我们前世见过这个苹果，种在了80几年内，然后可能这一生我们没有见过，我们就以为我们一直没有见过。
所以你的意思是？
就是应该还是它种在80田里了，所以我们才能认识这个东西。
没有错，他说的没错。我们之所以会看到，今天我们会看到这些东西，都在我们80田里面有。即使我们不认识这个东西，我们眼睛会看到，都已经在我们80田里面有。不可能说没有，我看得到，但我不知道什么东西。那为什么我们大家都看到一样的东西？因为我们有共同的意识，叫做共业。所以我们大家都在这个地方看到同样的东西，我们都会认识它，因为我们在同一个地方生长，所以看到的东西都是一样的。
So the answer is that you might not recognize this object in this present life, but in the past life, you definitely have come across and in contact with this object, and definitely already have the seed. If not, you will not be able to recognize, come across this object in this life. So that itself, it says that actually in the past you have done so, the seed. So for instance, these are what we call is a collective consciousness. That's what we refer as a collective karma. If not, all of us won't come across and seeing something that we have collectively seen before. That's another example given.
其实有很多，其实在我们这个世界上有很多东西，在我们面前我们不知道，我们没看到，是因为没有在我们种子里面，所以我们真的可以看到世界上的东西是事实上很少的。
So in actual fact, there's many things that we cannot see. Because why? Because it's not in our seed of this alaya. So whatever things that we have seen in this very life, in fact, is very much limited. So that explains the importance of the seed, so that it fulfill the 9 conditions, so that we're able to see the object in this very life.
像很多人说哪里有外星人，我都没看过外星人，外星人都不存在啊，我都没看到过。因为你没有在你的种子里面有这个外星人在你的种子里面，你当然没看到，搞不好他就在你的周围，你都不知道。
So for instance, the alien, so some of the people may come across and they recognize, but what about us? So that is because we don't have the seed of the alien in our alaya, in our consciousness. So even though we have come across that we couldn't recognize, so we say that there's no alien at all.
所以这个问题应该解决了吧？
So we have this answer for this question.
是的，法师，阿弥陀佛。
是谁问的？是 Kim 吗？
这样是。
对，那不管。那我们今天来讲，因为昨天有讲到，他也问到说，我们八地菩萨要怎么修啊，怎么的？那一个人说，你现在问八地会不会太早了？先问初地吧，先问第一地是怎么样的。那我们今天就来讲我们菩萨道修行的过程。
So last night we have a question that asked about that how does the 8th round of Bodhisattva cultivates? And there's another question asked that why not we just start with an initial stage, which is the first round of the Bodhisattva. So Dharma Master Yi will take this opportunity to share with us the concept as well as this the process of the Bodhisattva cultivation path.
我们佛教的修行，尤其是 唯识学它是讲一步一步步骤来的，所以你在修行的时候，在修菩萨道的时候，一定是从凡夫开始，然后追求无上正等正觉的菩提心。
So when we learn about this consciousness only in the Buddhism practice, so in fact we learn it through step by step, from the beginning, from the start, and to the highest one. So that applies the same for the cultivation of the Bodhisattva. So you got to start with the beginning level, then you go higher and higher until you reach the supreme Buddhahood.
那这个修行阶段是一个阶段一个阶段，是我有划分的很清楚。那最具代表性的就是菩萨划分为5个阶段，在修行上有5个阶段。
So in fact, the cultivation has been divided in many stages, and in general, for the Bodhisattva cultivation, the path has been divided into 5 stages.
那我们叫做五位，5个阶位。
So this is what we call the 5 level altogether.
那这个就是菩萨道的5个阶段，我们叫五位。
So these are the stages of the cultivation of the Bodhisattva path, and they have the 5 major rank.
那有哪5个呢？资粮位、加行位、见道位、修道位、究竟位，这5个。
So they have these 5 rank, basically are the accumulation, preparation, seeing, cultivation, and realization.
那我们一个个慢慢讲。
So we will explain slowly, bit by bit.
第一个呢，资粮位。
So the first one is the stage of the accumulation.
什么叫资粮呢？就是好像粮草。以前古代的军队要去打仗，军队要出行的时候，粮草先行，就粮草呢一定要先走，然后军队打了，到了目的地的时候就有东西吃了。
So this is what we call you have to prepare yourself in terms of your resource. For instance, if you go into a war, then if you go into war, are you going to prepare only the military? No, you also prepare the food, everything, so that you can support to go into the combat. That applies same for this understanding of the stage of accumulation.
那以前汉朝的汉武帝在打匈奴的时候，他们派军去西域打。那个粮草军队从长安一直排到现在的西域的那个玉门关那边，长长的一个队伍，都是吃的，跟粮草啊，还有马要吃的草啊，还有人要吃的东西，排那么长的队伍，军队都没那么多，他那个粮草就这么多。
So another example is that during the Han Dynasty, when they go into the war, so in fact, when they prepare this war to combat with the enemy, they prepare very much in terms of this food. The food is not only for the army, the food for the horse as well. So queue up is a very long queue from actually the what you call the capital to a very far until reach almost the area of this enemy. So it's the comparison between the army and the food itself. In fact, this food preparation is overwhelming. It shows that the importance of preparation of the food.
所以资粮会呢，就是第一个开始的。那他们有2个资粮一定要做到，就一个是福德的，一个是智慧的。
So when you talk about these resources, then you have these 2 kinds of resources. The first one is called these merit and virtues. The second is called the wisdom.
因为修行呢，他必须要现在就是在修行的时候，要未来正悟的累积的资粮，所以一定是在福德跟智慧两种。
So this is to prepare our future enlightenment, to attain the realization of the enlightenment. So because of that, you've got to prepare yourself in terms of the merit and virtues and the wisdom. These 2, in fact, are the resources.
那这个资粮位的我们说资粮位的菩萨，他们就是发菩提心了，但是呢，还属于凡夫，因为他就在修行。
So once you want to enter into this stage of accumulation, you need to give rise to the resolution of the body mind. So when you give rise to this resolution of body mind, you are not yet attained the same yet. Of course, we are just ordinary people, but anyhow, we still prepare this merit and virtues as well as this wisdom.
那资粮会的修行是让我们建立一个很正确的观念跟正确的方向。
So this is very important because these resources are preparing us in terms of the proper direction and also the proper understanding, proper view. That is very, very important.
那就是让我们知道佛法是我们是一切的法是无我的，是无生的，那以这个为主来发菩提心。
So the basic understanding, the essence is that we must realize that everything is non-self. There's no idea, the entity of I, nothing for us to manipulate. So when we have this understanding, then we start to give rise to the body-mind resolutions.
修行人花最多时间、最困难的就是在这个资粮位。
So when we talk about cultivation, the most challenging and the most time we have to spend that is on this part, which is called the stage of accumulations.
那为什么呢？因为这个时候的菩萨内心有很多烦恼。
So why is it so? Because at this stage, the Bodhisattva, when they give rise to the Bodhi-mind resolution, they are still ordinary people, and ordinary people will still subject to what? The affliction. So they still have many kinds of afflictions.
所以这种在资粮位的修行者呢，他一定要具足两种功能，才有资格称作资粮位。
So in this stage, then you got to have these two kinds of these qualities, the virtues. The first one is called the merit and virtues, and the second one is called the wisdom.
第一个功能就是要细解唯识的妙理。
So the first one is called this the faith, and also the second one is called the understanding.
就是说，就所谓的万法唯识。
So when we have this understanding of the faith as well as the understanding, then itself you also penetrate to that all dharmas is consciousness only.
那所有一切法都是因缘所生，那这因缘都是在我们的心里面。
So all the dharma are due to the cause and condition, and all are within our own mind.
所以万法就是一心。
So when we talk about these dharmas, in fact, is related to the mind.
那这个观念要非常非常深刻的理解。
So this concept must be deeply rooted in our understanding if we want to cultivate properly.
那第二种功能，你就是要发很大的菩提心。
And the second one is that you have to give rise to a very great body-mind resolutions.
你就是要有一种我要改造我自己。
So the first idea is that I got to improve myself. I want to rectify myself. I want to correct myself.
所以就是福慧两个资粮。
So this is referred to what? To actually blessing as well as the wisdom.
然后在这上面写的就是福德的资粮，就是利他的，就是要布施、要持戒、要忍辱。
So when we talk about the blessing, that is to benefit others, then comprises of what? Comprises of this giving element, generosity. The second one, upholding the precept, which is the morality. The third one is patience. You can handle all kinds of situations.
那智慧的资粮就是智力，你就要闻思修啊，闻思就像你们现在来听闻正法啊，然后思维法义，然后修行，然后禅定。
So you see, this wisdom, then the first thing first is that you've got to come and listen to the Dharma. Because when you come to listen to the Dharma, then you have this hearing of the Dharma benefit. And furthermore, you can contemplate, to think what have you learned. And not only that, you go further by cultivating the wisdom, the idea that you have learned. Of course, when you go further, you also practice the concentration and you will give rise to the prajna as well.
那这个资粮位你要花多少时间，你知道吗？
How much time you have to spend when you're in this stage of accumulation? Do you have any idea?
至少一大阿僧祇劫。
At least 100 kapas.
为什么呢？
Why is it so?
因为资粮位的菩萨很容易退转。
So the reason being, we will easily retrogress. We will give up easily.
因为你在修行当中进进退退。
Because we move
forward 3 steps, then we go backwards 4 steps. So that's the reason that it take very long time.
就好像我今天发菩提，我要精进用功，然后一点点挫折，起了烦恼，哎呀，不要了就退了。然后一想，哎呀，我这又怎么这么懒啊？我又开始又要用功了，这样进进退。
So for instance, when you make up the mind, you want to give rise to this body mind resolution. So you work very hard, very diligent, vigorously cultivate. Unfortunately, you met up with some obstacles, some challenges. Oh, it is so tough. Then you give up. Then later you recall, I think I shouldn't be in that way. I got to pick up myself again. So you start to cultivate. So that explains why we're moving forward and we're going forward, backward.
那所以昨天讲说，我们还是先先研究一下怎么能够登上初地菩萨。
So last time we mentioned about how do we attain the first round of the Bodhisattva.
所以资粮会能够好好做已经很不容易。
So when we talk about this, if we recollect that if you want to in this stage of accumulation, it's not that easy. What more you want to attain the first crown of Bodhisattva?
所以你在资粮会通常是福跟智慧，福德跟智慧，它通常这两个不会很平均的。
So when you talk about this stage of accumulation, cultivation, it is about the blessing as well as the wisdom. But unfortunately, sometimes we cannot balance. Either the blessing is more, the cultivation, or the wisdom is more, or the wisdom is less, and the blessing is more. So either way.
很多人他就喜欢做功德，哇，到场去做啊，帮忙啊，要也布施啊，做什么？那他要他去学习经典，他就不愿意。
So there are some people who like to do a lot of giving. They come to the way place to offer their service. They want to help out. And this is called the blessing part. But if you ask them to come and listen to the Dharma, then they feel that's not the one that he wants. They don't like it.
也不能说他不愿意，他就哎，每次看到经典头就痛，看到经典我就想睡觉。
So when you come across the sutra, oh, headache, then I feel very sleepy. So they don't like investigate the Dharma. They don't like to learn about the sutra.
有没有这样情形？有人在笑的。
Is that the common scenario among us?
那但是呢，这里就讲，如果你真要进入资粮位，你这个福德跟智慧一定要两个并行。
So when you are in this stage of accumulation, always remember these two, the blessing part and the wisdom part, we must put effort into that so that it can be balanced. It cannot be lopsided.
所以说资粮位容易吗？
So do you think this stage of accumulation for the cultivation is easy?
我们在这里讲资粮位里面就在华严经里面就有十住、十恒、十回向。
So when talk about this stage of accumulation in the Avantamsaka Sutra, the Flower Adornment Sutra is actually different to the 10 dwelling, the 10 conduct, and the 10 transference. 是那个十性位呢？
实性是，对啊，连实性都没有讲。我们先实性，我们是连性都没有，他这个性已经通过了，才十住、十恒、十回向。
So I was asking, what about the 10 faith? Then actually, Pastor Jam already the 10 faith in straight away go to accumulation. So you see, it's not easy for us to cultivate the Bodhisattva path.
但是呢，你要发愿。
So because of that, we must always make this aspiration, make the vow.
你不发愿的话，有愿的话，你就会有这个缘，能够让你积极的去做。
So when we make up this aspiration, make the vow, then you will attract the affinity. When you have this affinity, you have the condition, then you have the chance to improve in this area.
所以呢，这个资粮位，如果你的福德资粮、你的智慧资粮圆满了，你就可以进入加行位。
So when you have completed this stage of accumulation, then you can go another level, which is the stage of preparation.
那这个加行位有四加行，又称为四善根。
So that it comprises of the 4 kinds of the wholesome roots.
那这哪四个呢？就软、顶、忍、是第一。
So you have this warm, submit, patient, and worthy first.
软呢就 好像你钻木取火，你会取那个产生很温暖。
So this warmth is referring like, for instance, you rub the what you call the wood stick, then you give rise to the fire, then you have a sense of warmth. That is the analogy.
那意思就是用智慧的火来烧掉我们的烦恼的那个木头。
So the analogy is that you are using the fire of what? Of the wisdom to burn the afflictions, so they no longer have any afflictions.
那顶呢，就是比方你已经爬到山顶去了。
So this summit is that you able to achieve to the top of the mountain.
那你到了山顶，你就看四面八方，那表示说你修法呢，脑筋更清楚、更清晰。
So it means that when you reach the top of the mountain, you have this 10 direction of the view. Then you can see everything clearly. That means to say, when you cultivate, you know very well what is the direction, how to do it, everything. You have a big picture already.
那忍位呢，就是对法呢会认可，就说这个对法的道理，比方普及灭道等等这个道理，你绝对是对的，绝对不可能退转，我一定要好好的修。
So the patience means that you have this very deep and very faith and very conviction about this four noble truths: the truth of suffering, the truth of cause of suffering, the truth of liberation, and the truth of way of liberation. So you are very sure already, because you are sure because of your wisdom is so solid, is already unmoved, and from that you will go further and certify and with no retrogression.
那四第一法呢，就是你在世间里面是最厉害的第一个最殊胜的境界。
So the only first that when achieve this, that means to say in the mundane you are number one. Everything you already know.
虽然呢还没有证悟到，但是呢已经差一点点。
So it's just one step before this fully enlightenment.
就是说在世间里面你是第一的。
So when we talk about the mundane, you're always number one.
那这个四第一，当你到四第一的时候，其实时间很短暂。
So that time is a very, very short period of time when you achieve this.
那这个当你四第一再进一步的时候，你就见到位了。
So after you have achieved this worldly number one, then you will go to the stage of seeing the path.
那这个就是初地的开始。
So this is what we are discussing before. That is the start of the first round of the Bodhisattva.
那这个就是凡夫跟圣者的分界点。
凡夫
跟圣者 sage。
So this is the level whereby the ordinary people and the saint
或者 saint， 他们圣者呢，你到了见到位，你就成圣人了，你就不会是凡夫的想法。
So once you achieve this, you don't have any ordinary people way of thinking. You already achieved this the saint.
所以这个是最关键的地方。
So this is a very crucial part.
那个它的定义是什么？就是加行位的努力以后呢，你的福德资粮、福慧的资粮都圆满了，它便能够在一刹那间，你的四第一在一刹那间就打破无明，那就亲证真如，亲证实相。
So this stage of seeing path, because why? Because of the previous, the first stage and the second stage, whereby you cultivate this blessing and the wisdom, you go further to achieve the four kinds of this wholesomeness roots. Then you go further. That means to say you're able to, in the flip of second, to break away or overcome the beginners of this delusion or ignorance. And not only that, you're able to penetrate to the truth, the true mark, which is the nature of the emptiness, or what you call the patient of non-production Dharma.
那当我们到了见到位以后，才能算真正的修行。
So only when we reach the stage of seeing the path, then only we can say that we now start to cultivate.
因为你只有亲实见到的目的地是什么样，你后面的修行才有明确的方向。
So this is to say that when you really see the path or you see the Dharma, then only that when you start to cultivate, that is meaningful. Why? Because the path has been laid out clearly. and you have very clear way of how to cultivate what is direction, what are so and so.
那戒到位的特征呢，就是他很开心，我戒到了。
So what are the characteristics when you reach the stage of seeing the truth or seeing the path? That means to say you are sent to the first ground of what? The ground of joy. You are always joy. You are happy.
那这个人他其实他还不是真正的觉悟，他还是在梦里面，但是他已经知道我醒了以后的样子是什么，所以他不会再回到凡夫的地位。
So this is not yet fully enlightened, and yet he's sort of like still in the dream. But anyhow, the understanding and the perception of the emptiness of seeing the truth is there. So because of that, there's no way for him to fall back, no way for him to retrogress, and surely he will attain the Buddhahood.
他再也不会相信说凡夫的境界是真的。
So you will go back as what we the ordinary people do, the way the ordinary people think, the way the ordinary people speak, and the way the ordinary people act already. No more those mundane activity.
所以他对世界所发生的事情，他不会这么的，甚至是任何的挫折或者任何事情对他好的坏的，对他来讲，他都不在乎。
So there's no setbacks from the worldly things, whether it's good or bad, so he doesn't care anymore. So everything is okay.
所以他呢，就确定将来肯定是成佛了，他不会再堕落。
So this one, no more retrogress, and surely will attain the Buddhahood.
那他的内心也升起了很大的欢喜。
So you have this unprecedented joy arises in the one's heart.
所以才叫欢喜地，第一地叫欢喜地。
So you will attain this first ground, the ground of joy.
然后当戒到位离戒道以后，就开始进入了修道位。修道位。
So after you seeing the path, then you start with the cultivation.
其实每一地它都有3个阶段，前面的阶段、中间的阶段、后面的阶段。那这个戒到位呢，欢喜地，它前面的阶段碰到了以后，到中间的阶段就马上到了修道位。
So if each of these ground they are divided to the higher grade and the higher grade, the middle grade and the lower grade. So it applies well for this second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th as well.
那戒到位的修行呢，就真正的对真实的对实相来行6度万恒，跟那个资粮位就不一样了。
So when we talk about these 6 paramita, which is the giving, the precepts, the patience, the concentration, the vigorous, as well as the wisdom, then in the stage of the accumulation, we also practice that. But what about when you are in the stage of seeing path? You also practice these 6 paramita. But these 2 path of the accumulation of path of the kind of the cultivation is totally different, because one is still on the ordinary people way of seeing things, and on the seeing the path, the Bodhisattva already attained no more ordinary way of people of thinking anymore. So that the way the cultivate of 6 paramita is totally different from these 2 paths.
那戒到位，虽然他戒到了，他在修行也是很漫长，也要经过阿僧祇劫。
So even though you have attained this seeing path as a Bodhisattva, what about the time of cultivation? It's still very, very long time. It's also like many kapas as well, asamkhaya kapas.
那为什么需要那么长？因为他们在一面修一面度化众生，这个他们在做的都是厚德智。
So why is it took so long time? Because they not only helping themselves in cultivation, they also transform and teach all the sentient beings. And because of that, they have to do a lot of work. And not only that, when they do this, they will gain the true wisdom in the later part.
那为什么他们需要这样做？因为他们在度化众生的时间呢，他们自己也增加他们自己的智慧。因为很多事情他不知道众生的想法是什么， 那当他做爱以后，他就知道说，哦，原来众生这么做，我应该怎么做。
So you see, why is it so? It's not only part of like transforming and teach the living being because they got to learn. Because all the living beings, all the sentient beings have different kinds of temperament. So when they come across and want to have the living beings transform and teach, they took time to learn from that, to know the way they think, to know the way they behave, so that this Bodhisattva will know how to cross all the sentient beings in a proper way.
那所以从第二地菩萨到十地的阶位，他们就是都在断除他们的烦恼，他们所知障。
So in other words, when they try to improve themselves and to cross all living beings, what do? They also overcoming, eradicating their own affliction. Because when they have lesser affliction, they will give rise to the wisdom. Of course, when you do that, then they will overcome their obstruction of their knowing. Because when you have this obstruction of seeing things or understanding, that itself is blocking us to improve. So when they cultivate further and further, this understanding stumbling block will be overcome. Then the wisdom will unfold already.
所以你看，每一地它都有它的名字，离垢地、花光地、宴会地等等等等，每一地都要有它的要修行的要克服的。
So you see the name of the second, third, fourth, for instance, the second which is freedom from defilement, the radiance. So you see the name itself also explained. So each of this stage, this level of the Bodhisattva, they have something to learn as well because they got to overcome their own shortcomings so that they can attain and go further and reaching number 10 and eventually the wonderful enlightenment.
所以经过这么长久的修行，你看二生起也是到第7地到第8地中间。因为什么这中间这个地方也很重要？其实修行有2个地方非常重要，一个就初地，一个就第7地。那第7地为什么重要？因为到第8地它就不动地，它不可能退转，它就肯定是成佛。那前面的7地8地，它可能还会继续退，当然不是退到凡夫，就是在菩萨道里面还是会继续，但第8地就不会退了。
So bear in mind that you see this this picture, the important turning point is on the first ground and the 7th ground. Why we say so? It took 2 asampaya kapas to moving forward from the first to number 7. But anyhow, this number 1 and number 7, we still have possibility of going backwards. This going backward doesn't mean that you fall back as ordinary people. That means to say you will stay within this 7 level of this Bodhisattva path. Whereas if you achieve the 8th ground of this Bodhisattva, then it is very, very important. Why? It says that in immovability. That means surely you will attain the Buddhahood. So when you attain the 8th ground of Bodhisattva, you surely will attain. No more like going backwards, number 7, number 6, number 5, then go back and come back to number 8. No way. You will go straight up already.
所以这个8地菩萨就是不动地。也是非常重要的一个位置。
So this is a very, very important level of this Bodhisattva cultivation.
那到了10地以后呢，就有等觉菩萨跟妙觉菩萨。等觉呢，就是他跟佛一样的，但是还不是佛。
So after the number 10 of this 10th ground of Bodhisattva, then you will reach the equal enlightenment. And this equal enlightenment is quite similar, alike of this wonderful enlightenment. That means to say it's a Sammasambuddhasa. But anyhow, this equal enlightenment is not yet the same as the Buddha yet.
那到妙觉呢？妙觉就是佛了。
So when we say that the wonderful enlightenment, that refers to Buddha.
那这个就是究竟位。
So this is the ultimate one.
或者是说正道位。
So this is what we call the realization path.
所以你看，从第8地他已经不动地了，到成佛还要一个阿僧祇劫。
So you see from this graph, it says that from number 8 to achieve the fully enlightened one, it takes another asataya tapa.
那所以人家讲3起修福慧，就是要三大阿僧祇劫来修行才成佛，就是这样。
So sometimes we come across that you need the 3 asataya sakapa to practice the cultivation so that you attain the Buddhahood.
所以你说修行容易吗？
So is it easy to cultivate?
那佛陀的功德就会有三身：法身、报身、化身。
So the Buddha have these merits. He have three kinds of the body. The first one is called the Dharma body, the reward body, as well as the transformation body.
那四智就是大圆镜智、平等性智、妙观察智、成所作智。
So there are four kinds of wisdom. The first one is the great mirror wisdom, equality wisdom, the wonderful observation wisdom, and the accomplishment wisdom.
那这四个字呢，就是我们在学这个唯识的转世成智的这个字。
So this actually has to do with what we have learned about this consciousness, which is on the five consciousness transform to the wisdom, and the sixth consciousness to transform to the wisdom, and the seventh consciousness transform the equality wisdom, and the eighth consciousness transform to the great mirror wisdom.
那结语就是资粮位是基础的累积。
So in summary, the state of accumulation is the accumulation of the foundation. That means we are building our foundation.
那加行位就是关键的冲刺，就好你要考试，最后1个月或最后1天你要冲刺，好好的练。那加行位就是这个。
So the stage of preparation is like the final sprint. Like for instance, you prepare for a game or any sports, then you have to really give it all out full force, so you're able to reach the goal.
那见到位就是质变的转折，就是我们从凡夫转成圣人的这个变的非常重要的地方。
So you see, this stage of seeing the truth is the turning point of this qualitative change. That means to say, before that, the stage of preparation and accumulation, we are still have this habit as ordinary human beings. So you still cultivate, you're still full of affliction. But when you achieve this stage of seeing the truth, you have this transformation. That means to say you are going to the same, no more going backwards as ordinary people.
那修到位就是很漫长的修行的过程。
So the stage of this cultivation is very long journey, and you got to do a lot of things. You got to achieve all these 6 paramitas.
那究竟会就是最终成正果。
So the stage of ultimate realization, of course, is a fruition of the Sama Sambuddhasa.
所以这个就是我们讲这个五个位阶的过程。
So this is a summary of actually we have learned that what are the stages if you want to cultivate the Bodhisattva path, and eventually you will attain the Sama Sambuddhasa.
那虽然说过程很长，但是呢，它告诉我们一步一步的步骤很清楚。
So this is really clearly spells out, and you know the direction. It is so clear already.
那《华严经》里面有讲说，譬如暗中宝，无灯不可见，佛法无人说，虽会破人了。
So it's just like that. If you're in the darkness, you know there's a treasure. But if you have darkness, how can you know there's treasure there, jewel there? Because if you don't turn on the light, how can you see there's such a treasure? So that applies the same analogy to the Buddha Dharma. If you have this Buddha Dharma, it's so wonderful, it's so profound. If nobody speaks, even though you are so smart, you have this wisdom, how can you understand that?
所以佛法就是要有人说。
So because of that, we need to request, and the Buddha Dharma need to be spoken as well.
因为你没有听说，你就是没有办法明了佛法的真正的意义。
我是讲多一些。
说你没有听人家怎么说，你没办法了解佛法真正的意义。
So if you not listen to somebody speaking the Dharma, how can you understand the true meaning of the Buddha Dharma?
你说我知道啊，我看得懂字啊，我自己看就好了。
Maybe you think that okay, I read, I can understand. Then you think you are okay.
有时候是这样子，我们讨论，或者我们互相问问题，或者你自己的想法，你没有办法扩张。当你要讨论，互相讨论，或你听人家说到这，才知道哦，原来道理可以这样讲，原来道理是这么一回事。因为我们都是很狭隘的。
So if you are living within your own circle, then you are very much restricted because you think in a very small scope only. But whereas if you come across like discussion or through the learning, then you really, you realize something. Oh, aha, you have some aha that, oh, this is not that. What I think is more than that. Then you expand your understanding. Then your wisdom can be improved as well.
好，到这部分有没有问题？
Any question on this part?
讲到这个5个阶位，本来我是要等八识讲完才讲，但是有人问了，我就先讲了一部分。
Actually, I will speak this later, but since somebody asked the question on the stage of the Bodhisattva on the 8 number 1, that's why I take this opportunity to share with everybody.
因为我们八识的话，就会讲什么时候是大言寂志，什么时候是成所作智，什么时候是其他妙观察智，都会在什么部位呢？在什么地方它会显现出。
So we will learn about the consciousness, the 5 consciousness. We learn about the 6 consciousness, 7 consciousness, 8 consciousness. It will transform to the wisdom, like the great mirror wisdom, contemplating wisdom. So that will explain very well in which stage that we're going to do this. So that's why we bring up this diagram, because it got to do with what we learn about the verses on these 8 consciousness rules and guiding principle.
不过也好，我们多练一次，多学一次，记忆会比较深刻。
So we learn again one more time. It's good because it's have what we call a stronger memory. You imprint deeply in our mind, our understanding.
然后这个是规矩，我们讲过了啊。现在讲这个，现在就转世层次了。在第5世的转世层次。
So now we go back to the verses on the 5 consciousness, which is on the transformation of the perceived division in the contemplation of emptiness is merely later attained wisdom. So we are talking about the part of transforming the 5 consciousness into wisdom.
那我们昨天讲过，我们再讲一次，因为我相信你们也不记得了。
So I repeat again.
因为所谓变相观空，就是前5世他没有办法观空，因为他只是针对的什么东西，他只是直接的接收，直接的看。所以他没有办法想，所以他必须要用心中的变现影像来理解空性，那就是要靠第8世来理解空性，第6世来理解空性。
So you see, we learned about the 5 consciousness. The 5 consciousness is a direct perception. It is straightforward contact with the object. There's no any process involved, any mental activity. But for this to realize the true meaning of the emptiness, the nature of emptiness, you need some images to be arises, then you contemplate. And how can it be achieved? You got to through the 6 consciousness. When you have this 6 consciousness and you contemplate, then only from this 5 consciousness we're able to transform to the true wisdom.
就好像5世就好像照相机所照出来的影像。
So the 5 consciousness is given like a camera function if taken the images.
它没有办法照到光的本身，它只照到影像。
So it only able to capture the image, but is it possible to capture the light? That's impossible. So the light referring to the nature of the emptiness.
那唯后德就是它只有理解是属于后德智的，就修行以后获得的智慧。
So the what we call the later attained wisdom, the wisdom can only be achieved through after you practice, you cultivate.
所以我们现在问你，你现在看到的是你见的是外境的，你现在看到这个是外境还是你心里的影像？你们认为呢？
心理的影像。
现在都知道是心理的影像，但是我们一直都认为这是外境，对不对？
So Dharma Master asked that if you see something external, for instance, the flower, is it something the object is outside? I mean the external world, or is something within your own mind? So the answer is within your own mind.
所以当你有烦恼的时候，你要怎么看待？
So when you give rise to affliction, how are you going to do?
你有没有烦恼过？
Will you give rise to afflictions?
那你们怎么处理？
Then how do you sort it out?
怎么处理？气的要死这样子，你怎么处理？
有时也是发脾气
啊，对呀。为什么会这样？
habit.
因为我们认为它是真的。如果我不认为它是真的，我们就不会发脾气。因为我们认为它是真实，它真实对我有伤害，所以我就很生气。我觉得都是这样。
So the Dharma Master asked, what are you going to do? So he said, you might give rise to the anger. Why is it so? Because in our understanding, we treat this is real because we see that this is real happening and give you problem. That's why it give rise to anger.
那果中由是不全真的意思就，即使在修行成就果位了，但是前五识还是不能直接的诠释真如。
So at the fruition, if there's a still self, there's not total truth. So that means to say, if you cultivate, then when you cultivate, you give rise to this understanding of the what we call the emptiness. But what about you still have the idea of self, the idea of I? That means to say you don't see the real truth, you don't see the real mark, you don't attain the true suchness.
那前五识是成所，它会转世成智，是成所作智。
So these 5 consciousness, when you transform the wisdom, is called accomplishing the wisdom.
为什么他没办法诠释真如呢？
Why is it so? You cannot fully interpret the nature of the truth or the nature of the emptiness.
因为他没有办法直接观空，他是变相观空。
Because you cannot straightway to experience the emptiness. You got to go through a certain process, then only can penetrate to the truth. So this is still partial understanding of the truth.
所以后面才讲原明出发成无，原明是第8识的大圆净智，要等大圆净智，等第8识转了，转世成智，第5识才能够真正的转成清净的成所作智。
So you see that at the initial emergence of the perfect clarity, the stage of no outflows is realized. That means to say, only when able to transform the 8 consciousness to a true wisdom, the name is called the Great Mirror Wisdom. Then only these 5 consciousness will transform to the non-outflow, pure of this accomplishment wisdom.
所以呢，原明的大圆净智是第8识转的，所以第8识跟第5识是绑在一起。
So since you understand this sentence, that means to say the 8 and the 5 actually are in one, it's not separated.
那成所作智的功能就是3类分身习苦轮。
So what is the function of this accomplished wisdom? That means to say, it says that using the 3 kinds of transformation body, one brings the wheel of suffering to rest.
那这个不可思议的变化身呢，是帮助众生来脱离轮回的痛苦。
So when you have achieved this stage of this wisdom, the accomplishment wisdom, then you have this ability, the ability of 3 kinds of transformation body. And what is the purpose of these 3 kinds of transformation body? That is to help the living beings to overcome the suffering, because we all sentient beings are still living in the world full of suffering, which relate to this form of the truth.
那3类分身是哪3类呢？
So what are these 3 kinds of this transformation body?
第一类是针对外凡位的菩萨，就是凡人啊，他是一般的人菩萨，就是他省善乱心的，是资粮位的菩萨。
So the first one is that he will transform to the body as what the Buddha has shown. That is to say, the target audience is who? Is it just ordinary people like us, or we want to cultivate the Bodhisattva path, which is still full of affliction? They still actually have the scattered mind and still want to cultivate their merit and virtues. That is the target audience.
那他所现的就是藏六的比丘僧，
So
就
he
是一
shows.
般的比丘僧。
So it shows that the Buddha is a monk, bhikkhu, is 6 feet tall.
那第2类呢，就针对内凡的菩萨，就是有登地的菩萨。
So the second part of the target audience is the attainment of the ground Bodhisattva.
那他现的就是藏六比丘僧，
So it shows the body of.
不是1000藏比丘僧，1000藏
It
高。
shows the body
高
of
大。
the 10,000 foot tall bhikkhu.
那为什么会这么大？因为那些内凡的菩萨，他们本身也是有神通，也可以看到这么大的。
So the reason being that this Bodhisattva is not an ordinary Bodhisattva, so they have this wonderful and very adorned body, which is very tall and very huge. They have this what they call the super knowledge as well. So that's why the Buddha will transform in such a 10,000 foot tall bhikkhu and to teach and transform them.
那藏六比丘是就是针对我们这个凡夫，然后显现出来跟我们一样。
So the ordinary people, the Buddha will show this 6 feet tall of this bhikkhu.
那随类化身，它第三种就随类化身，它就不一定是度化人，或者是其他类的众生。
So the transformation body is not necessary to transform and teach the human mankind. It can be other sentient beings as well.
那我现在讲讲前五识的特点。
So now let's see the characteristic of the first 5 consciousness.
第一个，它是很直接的。
So this we have discussed. We have this character of very straightforward, direct contact.
它是直接的接触外力，它不会经过思想跟判断。
So this process doesn't involve any thinking, any analysis, any judgment. It's straight away in contact, they get the information.
那限量就是直接的认知，也是没有分别。
So that means to say it also a direct perception. That means straight away they will have this connection without any interference, any memory or conceptualization.
那无记性呢？它就是它没有善恶无记的关系，它都没有，它本身是没有。
So when these 5 consciousness pick up the information, there's no wholesomeness or unwholesomeness. It's totally morally neutral. That means there's no good or evil at all. Just pick up the information.
那但是为什么我们前面是讲说性境限量偷三性？
So why is it so? Just we did learn that. How come they have these 3 states when refer to the 5 consciousness, which is the wholesomeness, unwholesomeness, and the neutral? Why is it so?
因为他的三性呢是被第六识影响，第六识要他做什么他做什么，他本身是无记。
So originally, these 5 consciousness have no characteristic of wholesome or unwholesome. In fact, it's neutral in nature. But because of this 6 consciousness is influencing our 5 consciousness, so these 5 consciousness might have this nature of wholesomeness or the nature of unwholesomeness, the nature of doing good or the nature of evil.
就像第六识说，跟前五识讲说，哎呀，那个人很讨人厌，你用手去揍他。
So, for instance, the 6 consciousness giving the instruction to the 5 consciousness, I don't like these people, so you go and do something or try to disturb him.
或者用嘴巴去骂他，
Or you slow him.
所以他就有恶性。
So the nature is called what? Evil.
但是他这个恶性是被指使的，不是他自己本身。
So it doesn't do it with his own intention. It was under the influence of the 6 consciousness.
那它是依根而起，就是它必须依靠相应的根才能够运作。然后它要看东西，一定要靠眼根。
So it also cannot be stand alone. You got to what? You got to depend on what? The sense organ, the faculty.
你要听，一定要耳朵来听。
So if you want to listen, you need to have the ear. 是这个也可以有射精根哦。
啊？
射精根可以要讲是 sense organ 也包括射精根。 射精根，这个 dependent on sense organ, including the pure form of organs.
净色根。
净色根。
对。
包括净色根哦。
对，一定要有净色根，它才能够看到。
So
没有净色根看不到。
So the sense organ is referring to the eyeball as well as this pure form of the organ. So we have 2. One is internal, one which is the qi and the energy. The other one, the external one, is referring to the eyeball when we refer to the eye consciousness.
那我们稍微，耳识跟眼识是获取外面资讯的主要的管道。
So the eye and the ears are very 2 major channels for us to pick up the external information.
那眼识呢，就是认识外面的环境。它特点呢，它就是能够分辨大小啊、动静啊、远近。
So these eye consciousness have the function of perceiving the visual object, which can differentiate among this distance, size, and the movement.
那耳识呢，就是听声音，音量啊、音质，特点就会变方向，还有远啊、高低。
So you have this ear processes perceive the sound like pitch, volume, and quality, whether it's distorted sound or not. Then you can differentiate the direction, the distance, whether it's a high pitch, the treble, or the bass.
那鼻识呢？鼻识的功能就闻香臭味。
So the nose consciousness is to perceive the odors and the scents.
舌识呢就是尝味道。
So the tongue consciousness is about perceiving the taste.
那身识呢就是认识啊，冷热、软硬、粗滑、轻重。
So the body consciousness is about the touch. So it can be the hard or the soft, hot or cold, or the feeling of whether it's smooth or very rough surface.
所以这个都是我们对外的所有的管道。
So this is how we actually recognize the external world. These are the channel.
但是呢，前五识它有限制。
And unfortunately, they have this limitation for these 5 consciousnesses.
因为我们的感官只能感知到特定的范围。
That's because limited range. That's because the central, this central acuity can only be within a specific range. It cannot be too far.
就像我们的耳朵，它只有一个范围的这个叫什么？声音声波。
So like for instance, the ear we can only listen the sound wave to certain distance.
那眼睛也是，只是某一部分的光波而已。太多像我们就看不到紫外线，那事实上有紫外线，这样我们都是有限制的。
So our eyeball also limited. For instance, we cannot see what is called this ultraviolet ray.
那我们五视也很容易受到干扰。
And not only that, is easily distracted.
因为我们的环境干扰了，我们就会产生错觉。
So when there is some disturbance, then we might not seeing or hearing clearly.
就像我们如果想要看，如果前面有东西挡住的话，我们就看不到前面后面的东西。
So for instance, our sight will be blocked if something is in the middle of the object, something is blocking.
所以它是受干扰的。
So this is what we call the distraction.
那前五识它也没有办法理解意义。
So these 5 consciousnesses also have this limitation, not able to contemplate or to comprehend or to understand.
因为它只能感知现象，它只是我看到这个，我看到这个人在做什么，但是我不知道他为什么做，这做出来会造成什么影响，他不会知道。
So it's only like picking up the information. For instance, what is the person doing? You cannot analyze, you cannot deduce what is this person doing.
然后他前五识他是没有办法自主的运作。
So these 5 consciousnesses also have to dependent on condition. It cannot be independent. That's why you need other condition for these 5 consciousnesses to work properly.
他靠第六识的引导才能够去做。
So basically, it needs the 6 consciousnesses to guided properly so that it can be function purposefully.
所以他只能被动的接受信息，无法进行判断。
So the information that the 5 consciousnesses pick up, in fact, is very passive because it doesn't able to make the judgment.
我说我不要做判断，我看到这个东西，我就停住了，停在我的前五识，我不要到第六识去，有没有可能？
So is it possible, like when I see something through the 5 consciousnesses, or I hear, I touch, I smell, or I taste? Is it possible I stop at the level of 5 consciousnesses without reaching the 6 consciousnesses?
所以可能吗？
Is it possible?
不可能。我们只要眼睛看到，其实马上就到第六识去了。
That's impossible. So it's within of this microsecond, it will reach the 6 consciousnesses. So it works hand in hand.
所以我们现在在讲这个时候，我们是把我们的 脑筋的想法、慢动作，把它弄出来，让大家知道。
So the reason we are actually discussing this because we want to learn the way how we think, how our mind works, how actually the programming is working. That means to say this is the mechanism of the 5 consciousness which interact with the 6 consciousness. This is what we are learning now.
就好像电影我们看这个动作，其实它是一张一张的胶片联合起来变成的动作。那我们现在就是试着把这个拉长一点。
So when we see a movie, we thought that it's a movie. In fact, it's all made by all the frame, the frame add up together. Then you have the series of this frame, and then you make a series of the story. So now what we are learning is the same. You not only watching the movie, you are breaking down the movie into the frame. Then you know what actually happened. Then you can see clearly. That is the purpose why we are discussing this first 5 components. You have this limitation, the kind of characteristics, etc.
所以我们为什么要这样子这么把它分开那么大呢？就希望我们能够很清楚我们心理的构造。
So the reason why, because we want to learn all this, to investigate all this, because we want to clearly know that this is the structure, this is the content, this is the process.
那我们要怎么转化前5式？
So how are we going to transform these 5 consciousness into the pure wisdom?
因为我们都受到对象感官的对象，然后产生很多烦恼。
So normally when through these 5 processes, we are really easily influenced by the object. And not only that, we give rise to the afflictions as well.
那如果我们修行后能够把这个转化为清净的智慧，
So in cultivation, we want to transform these 5 processes into the pure wisdom.
就把我们所感官的对象呢，我们了解它是烦恼的来源，我们不要执着。
So the key point is that we must know that why we give rise to the affliction, because we have this wrong understanding about the object, and we have this wrong understanding of this object, then we give rise to attachment. So when we give rise to attachment, then it will fall out with this affliction. So that is the key point we want to learn.
所以我们就是转染为净的转化是。
So this is what we call transforming the defilement to the purity of mind.
然后再来就是转局限为圆满。
So another one is called the transcending the limitation.
那为什么呢？因为我们本来都受时空的限制，我们只认识当下的境界。
So the reason being is that the 5 consciousness are really limited by the time and the space. So what we experiencing now, we really caught up within this very small scope of this area only.
那修行以后，我们就要超越时空的限制。
So that is the purpose of the cultivation. We want to go beyond the time and the concept of the time and the concept of the space.
像有一句话就讲说，你怎么样让露珠保持湿润，就是要让这滴露珠滴入大海里面，它就永远是保湿的。
So there's a saying that you want to keep the dew wet, you drop it into the sea.
为什么要让你？因为你要保持你的心，的话，就一定要让你的心像大海一样那么广阔。
So this saying is that if you want to really have purity of mind, then your mind got to be as vast as the 4 great ocean.
所以前5式现在就是大概是讲了，还有成所作智，这个是之后我们就说你转化为成所作智，就是很能够做任何替众生做任何事，因为他是做事的。
So you see, when you have achieved this all accomplishing wisdom, then you can do a lot of things. And majorly is what? To help all the living beings to cross them and to transform and teach them. 老师，这个是在什么结位？这个是什么结位？5式的转化。
5式的转化。
是初地、2地还是
5式一直到最后才转成，刚刚讲过吧？因为他 果中犹是不全真啊，他完全没办法理解，所以他永远无法知道真如真相是什么。他不会想，他不像六是会想，所以他不知道。
So I was asking that the 5 consciousness transformation, it happens at which level of which ground of the Bodhisattva? That this all accomplished wisdom can only be achieved when we are able to transform the 8 consciousness to the great mirror wisdom. That's to say that when you reach the Buddhahood, then you only achieve this all accomplishing wisdom. 老师对吗？
对啊，对啊，对，就是你一定要等第8世转了以后，你才能够跟着转。前5世是这样，因为前5世的那个种子一直都是有漏的，那等第8世的所有种子都成无漏了，它就跟着转。
So why is it so? Because the 5 consciousness have this characteristic of what? Outflow. That means you still default state, it's still an ordinary people state. So when you achieve this non-outflow state, that means to say when you achieve the Buddhahood, in order to achieve the Buddhahood, you got to transform the 8 consciousness to the great mirror wisdom as well. So all these 2 are in concurrent, in simultaneously achieving.
所以有什么问题？应该是讲完了。
Any question?
有个总结。OK， 还有个总结。它是感官世界的门户。
So this is the 5 conclusion that are the 5 concepts at this conclusion, the foundation of experience.
它就是我们认识世界是靠它。
So how are we going to recognize or get to know the external world? That is through these 5 sensory of these 5 consciousness.
那它跟第6世的关系，它就是提供原始资料，然后第6世就对这些进行分析整合，来完成完整的认知。
So you see, these 5 consciousness pick up the information from the external world as the most original one. That means it's not distorted, there's no meaning at all. But unfortunately, when you go through the 6 consciousness, you will go through the process of interpretation, generalization, analysis, conceptual, depends on the person karma, then it will give rise to certain meaning. So that is the relationship with these 6 consciousness.
那它第7、第8世的关系，它要靠第8世提供的种子跟感官的根，然后又受第7世我执的影响，使它的感官带有主观的色彩。
So these 5 consciousness also giving the seed to the 8 consciousness, because the 8 consciousness is what we call the recording, collecting the data. Then from the 8 consciousness, we'll go through the 7 consciousness. These 7 consciousness have the idea of I. Is strongly rooted with the ego, the understanding of the I. So with this understanding I, there's always a discrimination. So this is how this 7 and 8 works together with the 5 consciousness.
那修行的意义，就是对所有东西不加分别跟执着。
So what is the meaning of when you want to cultivate the spiritual path? That means to say when we contemplate using the 5 consciousness, we try not to discriminate. You don't attach. You see as it is. And eventually, when we attain what we call the all-accomplished wisdom, then there's the real wisdom.
OK， 前5世就这样子，大概跟大家介绍了，有什么问题吗？
So it's a simple introduction. Any question?
你有问题吧？有什么问题？
我们做法是不分别的，就是照心业，不执着的话，就可以晴空，是吗？
就可以怎样？
业尽晴空。
哦，业尽晴空啊！哦，不执着就可以，
这个晴空有，我没有偏执啦。
晴也许可以空啊，但是业大概还不至于尽，因为业做了就是在要尽，只有去让它现行，然后化掉。
So he was asking the non-attachment, then you won't give rise to certain kinds of emotion. But does it mean that the karma also can be empty? No, the answer is that the karma cannot be empty because whatever you have done, the karma is there. But the thing is that when you don't have attachment, then you won't give rise to the certain kinds of emotion anymore. 老师还有一个问题，那个《楞严经》里面不是有25种圆通章，它里面有讲那个5个事怎么去修行，应该跟这个有关系的。
有啊，所以我们要先了解这个，然后了解那也许就比较容易了解。
So I was asking that we are learning the 5 consciousness. So is it to do with the chapter on this, the 25 means to achieving the enlightenment from the Surangama Sutra? So any relationship? So Dharma Master said definitely yes. That's why it's very important for us to have a fundamental understanding of what is called, what it is 5 consciousness called. Then only we can able to pick up and to learn to investigate to Surangama Sutra.
这个学这个唯识是不容易的，但是有个方法我可以介绍给你们。
So learning this consciousness only is not that easy. But anyhow, I will introduce what are the methods so that we can pick it up easily.
这个方法是一个叫做费曼，我不知道你们知道费曼博士，他是很有名的物理学家，得过诺贝尔奖的费曼。
英文。
费曼。
So one of the methods is that you learn from a German physics scientist, which is called Feynman. So it's very famous that the Faster will introduce the method.
那他呢？他说他怎么学呢？他说他先选择一个概念，就你要学什么，你先选它出来。
So if you want to learn something, then you pick up a subject, then you pick up the concept. What does this subject talk about? The basic understanding, the concept first.
然后你就把你想要学习的这个概念呢，要深入的理解的概念呢，用它写在纸上。
So you put it down in words that what you want to learn for this particular concept, so that it can be handwritten. You will clearly spell out already.
现在大家很少人用手写了，你就打在你的电脑上。
So nowadays people don't take notes anymore. So some will key into their computer.
然后你用很简单的语言去解释它。所以你看了以后你觉得是这样，你用很简单的话来解释。
So once you read this concept, then you use as simple as possible the layperson word to understand it, to write it out.
然后解释的过程呢，如果你卡到了，不太清楚的话，你再回到原来的教材，再找他的资讯，再重新去学那部分。
So if you start halfway when you want to write down, put down as in the words, but you still cannot comprehend fully, then you go back to the basic, the concept that you want to learn, then you go through again.
那重新再学那部分的知识，一直到你觉得很通畅，可以解释了。你学东西，你一定要说我会了就好，你一定要学到我可以解释。
So you see, you've got to repeat this process so that you're able to verbalize, you'll be able to explain. So when you explain more and more, then you can internalize. So everything becomes so smooth already.
那重新整理你的解释，你就要再简化，然后再类比。
So you can actually reorganize it, simplify it, and you categorize it.
让你的解释呢更加的精炼，更加的简单。
So make your explanation become more precise and yet very simple.
然后用很简单的比例来记起来，来理解。
So you can recall and put it as a memory. In what way? In an analogy way or example way?
那这样的话，你就能够把你想要学的东西，你已经了解，可以很简单的讲出来，让就是小学生都能懂。
So when you do this, then you will pick up very fast. And even though when you speak, then you will, even though a primary school of students were able to understand what you are saying.
那你每一次你碰到你想要学的，你就这样做的话，你就很容易就会了。
So whenever you do this again, then you will learn. Then your learning program will be very fast.
最重要的是，你在学的时候，你一定要想，我这个东西要怎么跟人家说。
So you must always think, how do I explain this subject proper to another person?
对，当你讲出来，人家听得懂的话，就表示你明白了。
So when you speak it out and somebody really can comprehend what you say, it shows that you really understand.
通常越简单的，不是越复杂的东西能够很简单的被解释出来的话，表示这个人是全盘了解。
So you see, what we learn, it seems might be very complicated, but you can speak it out in a very simple manner, in a very simple way, in very easy way. Then it shows that you have the true understanding of what you have learned already.
这个方法好不好？
This method good or not?
可以试试看。
You can try out.
我去学这个，我也是用这个方法，我觉得他这个方法很好。
So Dharma Master is using this method. It's wonderful.
但是我没有他厉害，我讲出来还是不是很里面不是很懂的样子。
So Dharma Master is humble. He say that he's not as good as him, and yet he cannot be, how to say, doing that good.
但是真的讲，不管讲什么，一定要讲得很白，大家一听就懂。
So you see, when we want to speak it out, we must speak it very clearly. What we call the HD, high definition.
千万不要讲一些知乎者也的，大家听了自己搞不好自己都不懂了。
So you don't stray away from the major point. You must straight to the point, and you don't make it very blur or you talk sideways. So you must straight to the point, very precise, very accurate.
所以我通常我在讲的时候，我都尽量在想，这样讲人家听不以我是观众的身份来听这样讲。
So Dharma Master always put herself in the shoes of the audience. What should I speak? So that as an audience, am I going to learn? Am I able to comprehend? Am I going to understand? So this is what Dharma Master Yi has been preparing so far.
但是我也没做得很好，我知道，但是尽量了。
So Dharma Master is humble to say that she has not done 100%. She is trying to do her very best to help us.
因为有时候你不太了解人家的程度，或了解因为每个地方的语言不同嘛，所以不太了解人家真的了解到是什么程度，有时候也很困难去那个。
So the concern is because we have different background, we have different culture, we have different understanding, we have different language. So because of that, we might not achieve the goal 100%.
那个我记得在万佛城的小学，我师兄弟讲，他说他在小学教学生嘛，那他教数学，人家都很喜欢听，因为他很会，所以他就，比方说那个数学要怎么运算，他一步一步这样算。但是他说，只要有些人有时候学校会请一些义工，他来义务教的，但是那些都很厉害，都是博士的，都请博士来教那些学生数学。可是那些学生听到博士都吓死了。
So there's an analogy of like a teacher that teach the mathematics. So it seems that it's very easy for the student to pick up because that's the way he or she teach. But if you get somebody to help out, a volunteer like a professor, so all the students might get scared of say, wow, this must be different grade. So they might have different perception. They might not pick up correctly.
因为那些博士他们对数学了解的很高深了，所以他根本就不会明白说小学生不懂什么，懂什么，所以他讲出来，小学生听不懂。
So because of the professor in mathematics, they have a very high level of understanding of principle of mathematics. So they don't know what is the standard of this, what you call the primary school student. So if they speak it out, then they might not comprehend very fast.
他所以会说，Does it mean that 6 and 7 consciousness have been transformed into wisdom? We will achieve patience with non-production. 他说，如果第6世跟第7世，转世成智的话，我们就会达到无生法忍的地步，会吗？我不知道，无生法忍是什么？我都不清楚。这个就是，如果直接叫我解释无生，我不知道我怎么解释，我就会去找很多资料来看无生法忍是什么，然后尽量用我的想法去解释。但是再怎么样，你都无法真正的知道什么是无生法忍，因为你不是七世正的。
So Dharma Master said that she's not able to explain also. Anyhow, if you really want, she might actually look for the material information about what we call the patient with non-production, with some her own idea or her own experience of cultivation. But nevertheless, because she has not experienced this patient with non-production, she couldn't explain or share it clearly. So the key point is that you got to practice and to certify, then only you can understand 100%.
但是照理说啊，第六七转的，你就肯定是正误的。
So in principle, we agree that when you're able to transform these 6 and 7 consciousness into wisdom, that we can say that you're already certified to this true wisdom.
因为有个说法，就6、7一中转，6跟7、4是在一中里面，我在一地的时候在转。
是什么因地转？
一地，我现在在修行是一地。
因果的因。
So
you see, this 6 and 7 consciousness transformation, it doesn't like transform like sudden one. Actually, it's like gradual. Because why? It's from the ground of the cause. So when we plant the right cause, then definitely the roots, the end result will take place. What kind of end result? That means the true wisdom. So this 6 and 7 transformation is a long process whereby you slowly transform from the ground until to the fully enlightenment one.
对，如果没什么问题，我们现在就回向。